on the sound. When you're dancing on the sound. Dancing on the sound. When you're dancing on the sound. Sun shining in the glasses. Love is growing in my brain. Come along.
Welcome to Porto. Welcome to the first Congress of the European Left Alliance for the People and the Planet. It was a long process. It's wonderful to see some of the faces who were in that process during the last years, I would say. So it's really amazing to have you all here and new faces, and will be much more, I'm sure of that. But now for starting this Congress that we have been waiting for so long, I will call to join us Catarina Martins, co-chair of the European Left Alliance.
Hi everyone, so sorry, but now I'll start to speak in Portuguese. Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Muito bom ver-vos todos aqui.
It is great to see you here in Oporto. This process started less than 1 year ago when we decided to create a party, a new party together, because in Europe we do not have what we have today. But now finally we have in Europe an European left party, green, feminist and anti-racist. And here we are for all the struggles of current times. I would like to thank all parties that helped us, that are here today, to thank La France Insoumise that was with us from the first moment, to thank Podemos from Spain, Razam from Poland, the Red and Green Alliance from Denmark, the Left Alliance from Finland, the Party of the Left from Sweden, and say that it is a great pleasure that in addition to these 7 founding parties of ELA, we also have with us Bildu from the Basque country and the Socialist Party of Norway. We are starting today, and we are starting now growing. We live times that are complicated. Our parties are experiencing different situations, and the national circumstances are also different. But we are together because we know that this is a hinge moment and at international level, and the left must unite, must resist, must grow, must mobilize, and must offer hope to the people in Europe and across the world. And that is what we are here for. Now, I will be brief because we will have speakers from the different parties and the guests. And so I wanted to say that it is good for ELA that is growing to count today with the presence of European parties that are not yet part of this process, but are here today with us. It is a great, we're very proud and pleased to have with us parties from across Europe representing the left here. And it is also very important to count on the presence of our partners, our companions from Latin American countries that will tell us of their experience in fighting this far right, and also to tell you that, of course, we will also hear the voices from the Middle East, from the Kurdish people and from the Palestinian people. And one of the first decisions that ELA is making as a party is to convene all citizens in the European Union so that with our strength we can force an embargo on Israel, because a terrorist state cannot have an agreement, a commercial agreement with the European Union. Here, the parties represented here can tell you what is happening without any hesitations, and what is happening in Palestine is a genocide. And our obligation is to stop it. Yesterday, our comrade Rima Bassam from La France Insoumise, an MEP, she arrived in Paris after being liberated by Israel, after having been illegally arrested. But we do know, and Rima always repeats, this is about the Palestinian people mainly, and the genocide goes on, and it is against the genocide that we fight. And that is with the great determination that our first decision is towards the protection of Palestine, stop Israel, stop genocide, and end the siege of Palestine. Free Palestine! Palestine will prevail. We all know, we also watch the news, we know what is happening today in the world. We see how the politics of war, brutality, the politics of hate have an international alliance that goes from Trump to Netanyahu, including Putin and many other dictators that are seeding the war or sowing the war in the world today. We know how brutality and the policy of hate has had an impact on the public debate, on the public policies in our countries, and also at global level. We know that the strategy of the Social Democrats or the strategy of the Green make sure that it was just enough to be sitting at the table of negotiations to stop the far right has failed this strategy. The chair at the table with the far right is also a chair at the table with the liberals and the far right to do the far right policy. So what they have done is moving the public debate more and more to the far right conditions, towards war, towards hate. And the parties gathered here today do not want to have a debate under these terms. We shall not stay quiet before the injustice towards that work, the social state, access to education, to health, and fair pensions. We will not sit quiet when you see xenophobia and racism growing. We are proudly feminists, and we will give no step behind on a climate policy, because there is no plan B. We are fighting, we are struggling for our lives. The parties gathered here today are those that do not bend, and that is why our objective is clear. We want to change the terms of political debate. We are here to participate in all struggles on behalf of social justice, against capitalism, against the patriarchate. We want to have a political debate that do not put people against people, but give strength to the people against the oligarchs that are getting more richer and richer at the expenses of the majority. Simple as that. We defend the peoples, we defend the planet. And when there are problems, the left should not bend, should not hide. We know how to overcome difficulties. We have learned together. We came together to study, but mainly to change, to grow, to mobilize. We are just starting to change the game. ELA is born to change the game and to give strength to the left and to the people. Thank you for being here. Malin.
Thank you, Katarina. Our next speaker is Malin Bjork, also co-chair of our newly formed European Party. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And this is an historic moment, of course. Some of us have never been a part of a European political party. Others have, but didn't have their home. But what is shared between us is that we do politics in our countries. Some do politics at European level, some do at regional, local, and in the national parliaments. And we all know that if we exchange, if we talk to each other, if we make our relationships stronger, we will be more effective and we will have stronger actions together. And that is what the European Left Alliance for the People and the Planet are for. And that is why we are so many parties that felt the need to get together. So that's what makes us historic here today. And friends, we might not have same urgencies in every step. We might not even have the same priority in every step. But we are here together because we know that we will become stronger together. And we also know why we need to become stronger together. And I worked 10 years as a member of parliament in the European Parliament. And I saw the nationalists and the right wing and the liberal authoritarians and the conservatives networking, getting stronger by the day. That has to stop, my friends. And the best way to stop them is to go stronger, to be bolder, and to be more connected. And that is what European Left Alliance is about. We will be there for each other. We will be there to support each other, for campaigning, for counteracting the nationalists, counteracting the liberal authoritarianism, fighting those that want to put austerity policies, fighting those that want to downsize the welfare system. And I know that all of you sitting here today know what we have in front of us. We have European leaders, national leaders in our countries that are threatening the very existence of international law and human rights. We have a genocide against Palestinians. We have a war of aggression against Ukraine. The European continent has never, ever needed a stronger left than it does today. We are fighters. We are resistance. We know that we will be the answers to the climate crisis, to the biodiversity crisis. We will protect workers' rights. We will rise for freedom, for women's rights, for LGBTI people. We will stand up against patriarchal capitalism that goes so well hand in hand, don't they? We will stop migration policies that kill at our borders. We will stand in solidarity with those that flee war and oppression. We will be the hope for the many. And to be the hope means also that we have to build concrete answers, concrete proposals. And we also have to aim for power, to change the political course, to change the political agenda. And we as left parties, and some in here in the room, have the experience of actually being in power. Of course, we can't change everything if we get into power, to run a city, to run a country, to run a region. But we will always make a difference. And we will stand against those that try to oppress and downsize what people matters in people's real lives. So that is also what the European Left Alliance is about. We will help each other to grow, to take power where we can, and to change people's lives. I want to wish all of you, European Left Alliance member parties, but also all of our guests. And as Katarina said, we have guests from Latin America, we have guests from Central and Eastern Europe, we have guests from Ukraine here, from Turkey. We have guests that share this desire and this fight to push back the authoritarian neoliberal paradigm and to create a future of hope and resilience for everyone. So with that, warm welcome. I'm not from Porto, but a warm welcome to Porto, because now for 2 days, this is our home. Very welcome.
I love our two co-chairs. I think you love them as well. So we are going to have a full afternoon debating our ways against fascism. But before that, we still have space for one intervention, and it will be from my former boss at the European Parliament, Manon Aubry. She is the co-chair of the European Left in the Parliament, and also from La France Insoumise. Manon is going to give a speech about building a new European front against capitalism and fascism. Manon.
Thank you. Having worked with Marisa, one might know that no one can be the boss of Marisa because she's been doing so great job in the European Parliament, and we miss you a lot, Marisa, even though we're obviously very happy to have Katarina. Hello, everyone. It's obviously a very great pleasure to be with you all today. It feels, I don't know how you feel about it, but it feels a little bit like a family meeting. I do remember some time ago when we've been having meeting in Copenhagen, in Paris, where we were dreaming about forming our own political party. Here we are. Here we are at the same time when the fascists are making up their own foundation, their own party. Here is the resistance. Here is the anti-fascist party. Here we are. Get ready. And thanks to you all who've been participating in creating it, because we can be proud of it. I'll start with a simple image. This week in France, Jordan Bardella, who is the president of the far right, one of the far right groups in the European Parliament, because now they're like mushroom. Every mandate, there's one additional far right group. So Jordan Bardella, president of the far right group, gathered all of his fascist friends in France, in a small city in the Loiret, and he actually, gathered the worst of the far right. You had there Viktor Orbán, who banned the Pride in Budapest and happily welcomes the perpetrator of genocide, Netanyahu. We had there Salvini and Abascal, who were respectively big fan of Mussolini and Franco. There was there as well Christoph Bosak from Poland, who assimilate abortion to, Jewish demands in a very anti-Semitic way, and so many other fascists. They are there. We know they are growing. You know that they're spreading their hate and their racism. But we are here to say as well from Porto that wherever they govern, wherever they attack women's rights, LGBTI rights, minority rights, wherever they spread their racism, we'll be there. And today, I think about Polish women who are deprived of the right to control their own bodies. I think about LGBTI community in Hungary systematically targeted by Orbán's regime. I think about Muslims in France relentlessly vilified by the far right and complicit media. I think about all of those who are scared, all of those seeing their country moving towards the far right. And I want to tell you all that we're here to stand up. We're here to fight. We're here to resist. And we're here to take action against those far rights. And that's one of the reasons why we created that European Party today. In the European Parliament, in the group that I have the great honor to chair and lead, every time they've been organizing one of the fascist events, we do organize protest. We do not leave any single centimeter to the fascists. For example, when they organize transphobic events or racist events, like those promoting remigration, we're there in front of the door to tell them that no, never, ever they could organize such event in the European Parliament. In April, I traveled to Poland with my colleague, Mathilde Panot, chair of the national group in the National Assembly in France, to deliver hundreds of abortion pills to the abortion center in Warsaw, where abortion is banned, and our Polish colleagues, I'm sure, are going to talk about. Soon, with some of you here in the room, we are going to be at the Budapest Pride, banned by Orbán. This is what ILA is about. ILA is about a new form of internationalism. ILA is about a new form of activism. ILA is about a new form of resistance. And rather than discussing forever papers, you know, in those very closed rooms, completely disconnected from the reality, that's what we're going to do in the next few months. We are going to take action. And this action starts today. The action starts today because our General Assembly has decided to launch our first campaign ever to end the genocide in Gaza. Because as Katarina rightly pointed out, let's not hide it, this is a genocide that Benjamin Netanyahu is committing in Gaza and should pay the price of it and be prosecuted by the international law. Yes, we refuse to turn a blind eye on what's happening in Gaza, of 2 million of people starving, of a whole population being killed by a government that wants just to create and commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. And you know, in the European Parliament, we've been asking over and over at every single plenary to have a debate and to have a resolution. But here comes the other group standing there, 18 months after the beginning of that genocide, years and decades after the beginning of the colonization in Gaza, standing in front of us and say that we can wait. No, it cannot wait. The genocide cannot wait. The 2 million of people in Gaza cannot wait. The people in Cisjordania cannot wait either. And that's why today I want to praise also the courage of my colleague Rima Hassan, who has been persecuted by the Israeli government for bringing humanitarian aid. And you know, instead of support, the crew faced some sort of contempt from the media, from the Israeli propaganda, mocking them as a pleasure cruise, as if you would go on a boat, bring humanitarian aid for just pleasure. And I want to say here very clearly, because I don't know you, but I was kind of shocked of the lack of reaction from the European authorities. I cannot help thinking that if Rima would not have been a Palestinian, if she would not have been from the left group in the European Parliament, if she would not have been detained by Israel, but by, I don't know, Russia or China, for sure, the European authority would have called for her immediate release. And they refused to do it. They refused to do it. And there are still 3 people as we speak from the flotilla detained. So I take the opportunity here from this Congress to call to do what the European authorities have not been able to do so far, and to call for the immediate release with no condition of the remaining of the flotilla. And that might be the part of the European Union that doesn't want me saying that because they're turning off the lights. But I think we should call it very clearly. And you know, if Rima went there on a humanitarian boat, it was to destroy and to end their humanitarian limits and the humanitarian situation in Gaza that is dramatic. And we know, and she's saying it, that boat will not be enough because there needs to be further action. And together we can shift the balance. This is why I'm proud today that our European Left Alliance together decided to launch its first ever campaign on Gaza and to launch a citizen initiative to end the genocide and suspend the EU trade association with Israel. Talking about action, this is what ELA is about, because we're going to keep the fight until Palestine is free. And I'm sure that with the support of all of you from our 7 parties, and thanks for bringing the flag of Palestine, with the support of all of us 7 parties, we can easily get the 1 million signature that is required. I even have a conviction, and I'm certain that we will manage to do it in way less than a year, because there's not a single second to lose, not a single minute to lose, to end the genocide in Gaza and end the impunity of Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, ELA won't stop there, because ELA was born from another shared conviction, the need to confront and defeat capitalism. For too long, European ultra-liberal policies have served corporate profit at the expense of workers, human rights, and the planet. They are deepening inequalities and favoring the rise of the far right. But instead of realizing that they're leading Europe straight to the wall, they continue business as usual and go further in deregulation, because they take Donald Trump and Elon Musk as their model, as if there was no alternative. But there is an alternative. And this alternative will further support, foster, and strengthen it with the foundation that ELA is going to build together, a foundation to share ideas, a foundation to share perspective, a foundation to share good practices, a foundation to think, but also to act on the side of ELA. This is what ELA will be about this year, thinking and acting. And I think the two together, the party and the foundation, will achieve it. And I'm very proud that we can do it together as well. To end on this, I know that sometimes it feels a little bit like swimming against the tide. For those who don't know me, I play water polo, so I like swimming against the tide. And we've got mountains to claim. But this is precisely this anger against those who despise people and don't care about the future that led to the creation of ELA to defend the people and the planet. And this indignation against destructive neoliberalism and the hatred of the far right must serve as a driving force to resist, hope, and act collectively. This will be ELA's power, to act every time it's possible, to resist the far right, to protect those who need us, to hope and give hope for another model of society based on social justice, feminism, ecological transition, and anti-racism. And I wanted to add and to finish and conclude with a citation of Pier Paolo Pasolini, whom I know you must know him, an Italian poet. He was saying, we did nothing to ensure that there would be no fascists. We merely condemned them. You might think about some people. That's me adding it. We merely condemned them, flattering our consciences with our indignation. We're not here just to indignate. Friends, comrades, we have a lot to do together. We're not here just to indignate. We're here to act together. And it starts now, because when we sing Siamo tutti antifascisti, we make sense about it and we act about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mano, for your strong speech. We will start now our first meeting. It's called the Anti-Fascist International. I think we can all agree in this room that the left has to cooperate more to organize the resistance, but also to learn how to win. So we will hear many speeches from ILA party leaders, but also from our international allies. I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker, Sónia Jacinto from Euskal Herria Bildu. Welcome.
Muchas gracias por esta invitación. Para nosotras es un honor y un placer traer el saludo de las mujeres y los hombres de la izquierda independentista vasca a este Congreso Fundacional de la Alianza de la Izquierda Europea por el Pueblo y el Planeta. EH Bildu ha solicitado ser miembro asociado de este nuevo partido. Y lo hemos hecho porque creemos firmemente que tenemos que estar en todos los espacios de lucha por el futuro de nuestros pueblos y del planeta Tierra. Estamos convencidas de que junto a vosotras vamos a poder debatir, intercambiar opiniones, por supuesto, alcanzar o ponernos de acuerdo para dar
discuss
luchas
and to achieve the
por un
goals of these
sistema
struggles.
económico más justo,
We
por todos los
must
derechos
fight
para
for
todas
a
las
more
personas,
fair
por
economic
una sociedad
social
más
system,
feminista
for a
y,
society
por
that is
supuesto,
more
por la
feminist,
autodeterminación de
and
los
for the
pueblos y la paz.
self-determination of peoples and for peace.
Puede que la paz sea la tarea más
Peace
importante.
is probably the most important
que
task
tenemos
we
por
have
delante.
before us.
El mundo está viendo
The world
un genocidio en directo.
is assisting to a genocide taking place before us, and we
No
cannot
podemos
remain
quedarnos parados.
silent, we cannot
Un
stop,
saludo
and we
a todos
must
los
act.
amigos y amigas
A
que están
my
participando en la marcha a Gaza y a quienes
salute
fueron
to
secuestrados
those
por el
who are
ejército israelí en la flotilla de la libertad.
participating in the march to
Permitidme
Gaza
un
and
saludo
those who were
especial al
arrested
pueblo
by
palestino
the Israeli authorities
desde
in
Euskal
the
Herria,
Freedom
del
Little.
pueblo del
I
Roble
would
al
like
pueblo del
to,
Olivo.
on behalf of
Un
the
grito de
people from Euskal
solidaridad y esperanza.
send a
Palestinas
salute
Katu,
to
Free
Palestinian
Palestine.
people. Free Palestine is our motto.
Un saludo también a todos los pueblos que luchan
A
por su
greeting to
liberación,
all those peoples who
a
fight
las
for the
compañeras de
liberation,
Kurdistán y del
the
Sáhara,
friends and
compañeras de
comrades
Canarias
from
o Filipinas,
Kurdistan, Sahara,
a
Western
quienes en
Sahara,
Brasil,
from the
Colombia,
Philippines,
Argentina,
from
Chile,
Colombia,
Uruguay,
Chile,
siguen
Uruguay,
luchando por un mundo
Argentina.
mejor.
We know that there are
Un
people
saludo
fighting
a
for a
todas
better
esas
world.
compañeras.
Our greetings to
Puede
all
que no
these
siempre estemos
comrades.
de
And
acuerdo en todo,
maybe no, we are not
pero
always in
permitidme
agreement on
parafrasear
everything,
al
but let
compañero
me
uruguayo
quote
Bebe Sandik
Bebe
y decir
Sandik
que
from Uruguay, a
si nos
comrade who
ponemos a
said
discutir
that
sobre
if we
nuestras
start
diferencias,
discussing our
nos podemos
differences,
pasar el resto de la vida
we can
discutiendo.
spend the rest of our lives
Pero si nos
discussing
ponemos a
them, but
trabajar
if we
sobre
start
nuestras
working on
coincidencias,
our common
vamos
ground,
a pasar
then we
toda
will
la vida trabajando.
move and
Eso es
forward,
EH
and we
Bildu.
will be working
Euskal
together for the
Herria
rest of
Bildu,
our lives.
En
Euskal
Euskal Herria
Herria
Bildu
Bildu,
coincidimos hombres y mujeres
we,
de
men and
diferentes
women,
ideologías.
are together
En
and we
este
have
momento de la
different
historia hemos
ideologies.
decidido
In our moment of
comprometernos
the history,
con el proceso de
we have
liberación
decided to
nacional y
commit
social
ourselves
de nuestro
with the
país.
process of national
Lo
economic
hacemos
liberation of our
trabajando desde
country.
la lógica del
We
Frente
work
Amplio y los
from
programas de
the
mínimos,
perspective of a
tendiendo la
broad
mano
fronts and
a
from
los
with the
grandes
de minimis
acuerdos al
program.
resto de fuerzas,
We consider it important to
ofreciendo a
have
nuestra
agreements with
comunidad
our forces.
un
We
referente
give
sensato y
our
creíble
community
que
a
trabaja en las
credible, a
instituciones y en la
sensible
calle
reference.
y lo
We
hace
work
por
with
el
institutions, we
futuro del
work on the
país
streets,
y
and
de
we
sus
work
clases
with a
populares.
view to bring a better future to
Y
our
la sociedad
country
vasca
and
lo ha
the
premiado,
people.
lo ha sabido
And
valorar.
the
Desde
Basque society
2016
has valued
estamos
our work.
creciendo
Ever
permanentemente.
since 2016,
Somos
we
la
have been
primera
growing as a
fuerza
party.
municipalista
We
en
are the
Euskal Herria.
first municipal
Sostenemos el
force,
gobierno en
political force
Nafarroa.
in
Estamos
Euskal Herria.
envasados a 27
We are
escaños de
the
75 con el
government
Partido
in Navarra.
Nacionalista Vasco
We
en el
have been,
Parlamento Vasco.
we are,
¿Qué hemos hecho
we have
posible
the
el
number of
gobierno en
seats
Madrid?
of the national
Todo
Basque
esto no está libre de
party in the
contradicciones.
Basque
En Euskal Herria
parliament.
Bildu convivimos
We
socialdemócratas,
know that there are
socialistas y comunistas,
many contradictions in
soberanistas e
our society, and in
independentistas,
our group we
ateos
have
o
communists,
cristianos de base.
socialists,
Eso es Euskal Herria
nationalists,
Bildu. Pero tenemos claro que las
Christians,
cosas no están para
Catholics.
discutir
We are here not to discuss, we exist not to discuss our differences, but to look at what is common and what we share. We have to work because we know the times are very difficult. We have to work and fight against the growth of the extreme right that has been able to capture the attention and the support of many popular forces. We in the left must listen to what people have to say and to find and address their frustrations. We have to be able to provide them with credible solutions. And the important thing is to organize ourselves. We have to go to talk to people from village to village, from neighborhood to neighborhood, from working place to working place. We have to organize ourselves and we have to act as militants. We have to fight together. It is the only way to do so. We have to create solid local structures that will allow us to find the best analysis of the situation. We have to be ambitious in what we do. We have to be ambitious, but we have to be realists as well. We don't need academic debates. What we have to do is to work on a daily basis with common people, explain to people what we do, explain to them what we want to do, and to work with them, alongside them. To be an associate member for Bildu, for an associate member of ELA, that is important. We believe that sooner or later we will be able to achieve our goals with the rights for people, social justice, and the liberation of peoples like ours. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Bildu, for joining the European Left Alliance. I'm now calling as a second speaker someone from the second party which decided to join the European Left Alliance also today. I mean the Socialist Left Party from Norway. So I call Audun Erning, the party secretary of SV. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for accepting us as associate members. In times like these, we need this. We need to come together. We need spaces like this to find inspiration and to learn from each other. Because, dear friends, we need to fight. Since the Spanish Civil War, the cry of anti-fascists all over the world has been "No pasarán." You will not pass. It is a battle cry that recognizes that the fight against the fascist forces is our most important fight. It is also a battle cry that recognizes that it is us, it is the left that stands against the rising tide of fascism. And if we fail, well, then we're in trouble. And it's against this backdrop that we must recognize that right now, we are not winning. In many countries, more people seek to the extreme right than they come to us to the left. I do not in any way pretend to have all the answers, but I have some observations. And these observations are, of course, from a Norwegian perspective. They are like part of the observation of the international left, but if anybody here now feel that I'm overstepping any boundaries or criticizing something that they hold dear, please think of it then as a critique of my own party and my own situation. Those of you who know me know that I have little patience for long speeches. Even less I have patience for what I call the Olympic goals, that we decide that we shall be faster, higher, stronger. I don't think the problem in the first place was that we decided to be like slow or not strong enough. That we at one point decided that we will be not jump high enough. Therefore, I only believe in different. What can we do differently? I don't have all the answers at all. I just have like 3 observations of a left that I think is failing to win, and I think 3 things that we need to do. First of all, the left must always be grounded in the local communities. I find great inspiration in what's happening in France. I see other countries as well. The work we had earlier on how people do door knocking and talk to people. And this is important not only because we live in a time there where our possibility to communicate through the media is evaporating. The possibility to communicate on social media is getting into silos and is getting controlled by algorithms that do not favor us. It is also important because we live in the same silos. We live in the same curated world. If we are not a part of a community, we speak different. We don't necessarily point to the right things or the problems that people have. We come to the communities and ask for the votes in campaigns, but we need to be there and to ask and always talk about them between campaigns. If we're not grounded, we will always be something external and we will not be able to win. And this is a great chance for us because we might not have the money, but we have the people. So in a time where party membership will become more important every day to communicate, to ground ourselves, to make sure we are a part of the right discussion, there are great opportunities for the left that manage to take that chance. We must always be in dialogue and we must always be responsive to the needs of people. The second thing is that our job is not to organize everyone who agrees with us. Our job is to get more people to agree with us. And I think too many people feel that the left might not be as inclusive as we like. I think too many people, and now I talk from my own party, come to our meetings and they feel like they don't know the lingo. They don't really know all the things they need. We must accept that people come to our parties, to our movement, without being fully educated socialists, feminists, anti-racists, environmentalists, and activists. We need to educate people, but we can only do that if they're already there. So we need to have a tolerant left, a left that doesn't judge, doesn't accept any of the other things, but doesn't expect people to come fully formed to our movement. We can do that. Sometimes it feels okay, but it is not enough of us. We need to create more. We need to have an organization and a movement that builds people. The second is what I call, the third, and my last point here, is what I call the death to the shorthand left. By that I mean, once again, I speak from my own experience. We sometimes use our words, we say this is fascism, or this will create inequality, or this is privatization. And we think that's an argument. We think that people recognize all what's behind it. And then we're surprised that people somehow choose inequality, fascism, or privatization, I call these. But our job is not necessarily just to say that. We need to explain why this is a problem in people's everyday lives. We, my party, sometimes we talk too much in our proposition, this is what we're going to propose. This is our parliamentary resolution. This is our budget proposal. Most people don't live their lives in parliamentary proposals or budget proposals. So we need to explain what we mean. We need to get away from the shorthand that just always for those included. I believe that we are the ones that stand between fascists and power. I believe our task is extremely important, and I think we're in a position that really to make a difference. I believe we can do that when we do things like we do here, express solidarity with each other, with what's happening in Palestine, in Ukraine, in the rest of the world. But most of all, we can do it when we learn from each other. I've already taken a lot of notes, this book is now more valuable than it was just a couple of hours ago. But if we're going to build this left that manage to be a part of communities, that are have talk like a way people are, then the only way we can do that is also learn from the experiences of others. We live in dark times, but not as dark times as the left has done before. And everybody knows, research shows that the most engaging story leftists all over the world knows, it is like this. We live in dark times. The forces massed against us are strong, but We stand together, and we've done this before. That's why we can do it again. This is the most rousing, like this is our story. And it's never been as true as right now. We are standing against dark forces. We are standing against like rising tide, but we have done it before. And dear friends and dear comrades, I'm really happy that we can do it together with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Odin, for your speech. Our next speaker comes from Brazil. He had a very relevant role in the defeat, in the victory against Jair Bolsonaro. Juliano Medeiros from PSOL, bem-vindo. The floor is yours.
Boa tarde, companheiros, companheiras.
Good afternoon, comrades. I will speak in Portuguese, if you allow me. First and foremost, I would like to thank for the invitation from this important tool that the European left political and social struggle has created today. So I'd like to thank and congratulate in behalf of Katerina and Malin, the whole team that is going to lead this process of renewal of a left project and take a capitalist here in Europe. I was thinking that there is not so much South American can teach about fighting fascism when you are talking to Europeans. I mean, after all, you have faced the worst versions of fascism, and we were able to beat them all the time, and I'm sure you will be able to beat them over and over again. And we hope we can be your allies in this struggle that we fight not just in one continent, but across the world, defending democracy, social rights, the planet, and justice-based world and a freedom-based world. So I will not speak so much about the role, the context of the retake of values and fascist stances in our society. I'd rather discuss our own role, the role of the anti-capitalist left in this context. Fascism never comes from scratch. I mean, it never stems from conditions that are not related to the social and material realities in our societies. So, contemporary fascist phenomena, we can find three common characteristics in any of our countries, or in all our countries. The first one is the change that capitalism is undergoing, its dysfunctions, how it is making more excluding societies, more violent, less inclusive. And this is based on vague or void promises about having societies fighting the insecurities promoted by capitalism itself. The second thing is about the loss of legitimacy of the politicians. Whenever politicians, the world of politics, democratic institution, liberal democracy fails in presenting spaces able to listen to our societies, listen to our peoples, fascism gains strength and showing that the state can only be a repressive force of capital, not an expression of the material demands from our peoples. But fascism is also gaining ground when the left is not able to interpret correctly the demands, the wishes, the fears, and the anxieties of our peoples. Fascism can only gain ground, as it has happened in many countries, when the lefts fail. And here, let me tell you about the Brazilian experience. We lived 4 years under a fascist government, typically fascist government. It was responsible directly for the death of 700,000 people during the pandemic. a country that represents 3% of the world population and that had 11% of the deaths during the COVID-19 pandemic. A direct expression not just of a weak state and its policies, but also a negationist vision about science, about knowledge, and the state policies historically promoted in Brazil and in many of our countries. How could we not understand this coming? Before Bolsonaro's victory, we had the arrest of President Lula. He spent 580 days in jail without evidence. And we were not able to predict that that event was announcing a victory of fascism. Or when Marielle Franco, my party companion, was assassinated in downtown Rio, and we could not understand that was an expression of a fascist offensive. Even before that, 2 years before Bolsonaro's victory, an legitimately elected president, was brought down, was impeached by the National Congress based on non-existing regulations to justify an alleged crime. And we did not understand that all this was part of an offensive of fascism. And why didn't we understand that? Because before all that, the left itself was promoting tax adjustment policies, recessive policies that led to the discredit, lack of trust from the society to our proposals. So it was only possible to arrest Lula, assassinate Marielle, bring down Dilma and elect Bolsonaro, because before all that, the left were wrong by accepting the neoliberal recipes, accepting tax adjustments, the purpose of which was to adjust Brazil to the capital needs. And I know that you also experienced this in Europe with social democrats, where governments that were the main responsible, and many of the countries present here for the recession and austerity policies that also led to the strengthening of the left alternatives. So I'm very happy to see this new effort of unity. The differences that we can find in the left should not be a reason to prevent this unity efforts from happening. I know that if there is a left that can interpret correctly the wish for peace, for justice, for prosperity, for the expansion of social rights in Europe, that left is here in this room. Long live socialism, long live the anti-fascist struggle. Thank you, Giuliano.
We will come back to Europe, and for the next speaker, I will call Nicola Fratoianni, Secretary of the Party Sinistra Italiana, and welcome.
Intanto vorrei dire
I'd like
grazie a
to
tutte e a
thank
tutti voi per questo
all of
invito.
you for this invitation.
Siamo molto felici di essere qui
We're very
oggi
happy to be here today
per condividere con voi il
to
bisogno
share
di
with you
convergenza
the needs for
che
convergence
oggi le forze
that
della
today
sinistra,
the
le
forces of the
della
left,
sinistra ecologista,
an
femminista,
ecologist,
sentono in
feminist
tutta Europa di fronte alla
left
situazione
feels across Europe
terribile che abbiamo
before the
davanti.
terrible situation that is before us.
Vengo dall'Italia, da
I
Roma,
come from
dove
Italy, from
pochi
Rome,
giorni fa abbiamo
where just a few days ago
organizzato
we organized
un'enorme
a
manifestazione
huge
contro il genocidio a
demonstration
Gaza.
against the genocide in Gaza.
300.000 uomini e donne hanno
300,000
nel
men
centro
and
di Roma
women
per dire
marched to the
basta
center
al
of
genocidio,
Rome
per dire
saying,
stop
stop
ai crimini
genocide,
di
stop,
guerra di
stop
Benjamin
war
Netanyahu.
crimes of Benjamin Netanyahu.
E per questo voglio dirvi
And for this
subito
reason, I want to say from
che
the
anche se qui
outset
sono un
that
ospite,
even if I'm guest here, even if we are guests here, we are on your side in the campaign that you have decided to launch, to suspend the Treaty of Association between you and Israel, to say that words are not enough. We need concrete facts, actions to stop genocide. We'll be on your side in this struggle, in this battle, and I hope in many other battles as well. I'd like to discuss with you fascism today and how to build an effective international anti-fascist front. We have to understand about what it is fascism today, what forms does it take, how does it articulate their initiatives. Today, when I think of fascism, I think of the war that Donald Trump made against the American universities. When I think of fascism today, I think of the war from all nationalist rights against research, against science, against the freedom of education, against culture. To legitimate science, culture, or illegitimate culture, science, and research means giving strength to violence, to fascism, and to barbarians. Or I think about what today we call the techno-feudalism, a world where a never smaller number of very powerful oligarchs holds in their hands a never higher power than any state or nation. A world where the great oligarchs can do without sanction, as Peter Thiel did, to decide democracy is incompatible with capitalism. And then in a program define the objectives to get rid of democracy, to free the animal spirit of this capitalism. Monopolistic control of the digital platforms, the hybrid warfare, the conditioning the democratic processes is the way that fascism takes today in how it organizes power. And it is in this context that the forces of the far right that we can find across our continent, and not just in Europe, are blossoming, growing, and getting organized. It seems a paradox, but today the nationalists from the far right across the world have been able to create a dark, a black international. Now, we have to build a green-red international that gives hope and is a real alternative. Then, dear comrades, when I think of fascism today, I think of war. I think of the war that is becoming a normal conflict resolution tool. But war is not just an ethical horror. War brings with it the economy of the war. War feeds nationalisms and promotes the right wing. To fight the war today is not just an ethical demand, it is a political battle, it is an economic battle, it is the basic requirement, basic condition to bring about our words of order, those that we share. There is not today for us the possibility to make this ecological transition a possible solution, and the emancipation and the extension of rights, and strengthen the welfare state, the social protection systems, if we do not get out of an economy of war, an economy that war imposes on us. So we think that those 5% proposed by the chief of NATO is crazy, completely crazy. Or the rearmament plan proposed by Ursula von der Leyen is a dramatic error for Europe. Europe today is under attack. It's under attack from authoritarian regimes of Trump, Putin, the nationalists in the European right. But this attack is not a military attack. It is a political attack, an economic attack. And we should respond with policies that are able to make the alternative project of Europe possible and credible. That is why we should say no to an increase in military expenditure, more investments on inclusive policies, labor policies, education policies, health policies, transition policies. If Europe does not go in this direction, it will be end to nationalism, to the right, and to fascism. If Europe does not go in this direction, the one of peace and alternative, Europe will open the road that today it wants to close. And I close my speech here. Dear comrades, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm here to bring you a contribution, to listen to all of you. I'm here with the hope to find even more closer connections in the building for the building of a better Europe, a better world, which is possible, but most of all necessary.
Thank you, Nicola. We saw in Germany that the left can go against the odds, organize thousands of people and bring a new generation to fight for another country, for another idea of Europe, of a project of solidarity. So we are very pleased to welcome Janis Ehling, Secretary General of Die Linke. Herzlich willkommen. Ich hoffe, du fühlst dich hier zu Hause.
Thank you. Bom dia. Okay, to be honest, when a lot of your parties decided to split from the European left, it felt a bit like a kick in the butt, and we were not happy. But it gave us a lot to think. Fascism is on the march, and the European left is splitting. But maybe, and sometimes, splits are necessary. We know that as a German left, because our success wouldn't have been possible without the split from Sarah Wagenknecht. Although I don't recommend it and I don't advertise splits. It nearly got us killed, so don't try that. And now you have a new party of a European Left Alliance, and the talks I had and the program I see is very good because it tackles the problems we face as a new left. Because there are a lot of challenges ahead, and because we call our parties progressive. But what is progress in a time where the fascists are on the march and people lose hope? And I think because people are losing hope in the left is the reason why the far right is rising, because people only defend what they have and then they kick down to the workers, to women, against migrants. So what we need is to bring back hope to people, and we need to bring back success to the left, and we need smaller and bigger victories. As a common left, as a German left, we rose like a phoenix from the ashes. When we started our election campaign in autumn, I thought, okay, that's maybe it's gonna be it, but I'm a party soldier. And but we made it. We had a political opportunity and we grabbed it. And that's what we're gonna need to do. When we have an opportunity as a left, we need to grab it. We invented new methods, scaled them on a higher level out of a sheer necessity, because because the media said in Germany, we are dead. Like a zombie, we are walking, but we are dead. So we had to do something. We invented apps. We used social media in a new way, which Germany hasn't seen. We were canvassing on the streets, and we had success. But on the bigger picture, it was a victory for the far right and the conservatives. And like in the last 30 years, our parties gained mostly from social democratic parties and the Green. And that's not enough. We need to be more successful. So, okay, to say that, it felt good to win finally after some years, because it's better to win than to lose or being defeated totally. That's very kind of you. I doesn't plan any applause in that speech because I face the difficulties we're facing. But thank you. I think in this situation, we in Portugal and in a lot of other countries, we have a new situation because the far right is there, the social democracy and the socialists in Portugal are losing, and we have a totally new situation for us. And our task is to achieve a better world, socialism. Yeah, you can say socialism. I think it is a goal. It is still a goal. And as a German left, I can only say I wish you and the European Left Alliance all the best of luck. And we look forward to work with you as close as possible together, because we have to compete. We have to tackle the fascists, the nationalists, the war. And I'm glad that we have a lot of talks in this evening. And thank you again. We need the united left in Europe and to fight with each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yanis. Now I call Nooshi Dadgostar. She is the party leader of Left Party in Sweden. Nooshi. Where is Nooshi? Hey. Welcome and thank you.
Oh. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for letting us be part of this fantastic alliance. We need each other more than ever. And this struggle, we can't fail. So, friends, we have to win this, okay? That is the most important part. So even if not everything is not right, the decisions we have to make, the more important part is to win. The development in the world is worrying. Country after country, we see a political trend where power-obsessed and control-seeking men are gaining some of the highest political positions and winning elections. And the development in Sweden is in many ways similar to the development in the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And we can see that men as Donald Trump and Putin are even supporting the extreme right to split Europe. So we have to think about how we can gather the forces here in Europe to not be split by forces outside the continent. And the extreme rights in Sweden, as in many other parts of the world, say they speak for the people. But again and again, they vote for policies that help the rich and the powerful. And it's the same pattern all over the world. And we can see now, for example, in the United States, that powerful rich men are buying the democratic system. So neoliberalism and fascism, they are very good, nice friends. And we have to fight them both. Because at the same time, what people are right now facing is prices keep raising. Rent, food, electricity, everything costs more, and the salaries are not coming with it. Many families now skip small things they used to enjoy. Others worry they can't pay their bills at all. But while most people are struggling, large companies are making huge profits. Banks raise interest, grocery chains charge more, energy companies, they increase the prices, and while households cut back, to top executive collects bonuses and owner takes out billions in profits. So, and what does the Swedish government do? Well, they don't do anything about it at all. So what I feel is like a lot of people want freedom, but even more, they want safety right now. They want to feel safe so that they can feel free. So we have to give people this safe spot in the left. How should we fight fascism? We have to confirm there is problems in the society. We are not defending a broken system. We can never do that, because sometimes the extreme right try to say the left is the problem. They have built this society, but we have not. This is a capitalist neoliberal society that we are not defending. And people's wallets are empty. Many people are unemployed. The climate transition has stalled, which means that less jobs are coming to Sweden, less industry jobs are coming to Europe. Food chains, electricity companies, banks are raising prices and interests because many markets now in Europe and in Sweden are monopolies or oligopoles. A few companies are owning the whole market. I think the left in Europe need to work for laws that break up big companies. We cannot have so many big companies controlling the prices, because we see now in Sweden, for example, they look at each other and they rise prices together. And that is what's emptying working class people's wallets. We have to stop that. We need to work for European independence concerning defense, for example. We want to get independent from Donald Trump or from other dictatorships, because they want to support the extreme rights in Europe, and we don't need that. Even digital services, for example, we need a European Facebook, we need a European TikTok, we need Europe to be independent from authoritarian politicians that want to know and, take European people's name and be powerful inside of our continent. And this is the time, at least in Sweden, to take back control from privatized welfare. So now we can do that, because so many people are insecure. They feel they can't really trust the system anymore when they go to school, they go to hospitals. So taking back that control to the public, that is what we have to do right now. So please, people, if you have forgotten everything I said, just remember this: we have to win, okay? So sooner or later, the fascists in the history have lost, but let us make it sooner, okay, than later. And what is important for me, that we get big and we win. Maybe we have to change some views for winning. Maybe that is what it is worth, right? So let us think about that. It's always good to be right, to be the perfect person, to be remembered 100 years from now, but you will not experience that happiness, okay? So I'm sure with all these people here, I'm so happy to be here, that we will win. They are going to dehumanize so many people. We are going to humanize them, and we can together change and fight back. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anna Makipa, Secretary General of Azomisto. Welcome.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. In the United States, we see how the rule of law and human rights are crumbling now that the Trump is back in power. This term has shown in particular that he has not wasted any time in getting down the business. Since returning to power, he has been very decisive and quick to act. We all here are well aware of what Trump has done. He has severely attacked workers' rights and fired a lot of people. Trump has restricted academic freedom and is trying to control the activities of universities. It is clear that he is leading the country in a very authoritarian manner and trampling on people's rights. Let's look at Europe. It seems that every time there is an election in a European country, we have to hold our breath for the results. Poland and Hungary are both examples of countries where right-wing populists have curtailed media freedom and women's rights. It is worrying to see that in Poland, for example, the restrictions of abortion rights are not easy to reverse, even if there is a political will to do so. What happens in Finland? There too, since the last parliamentary elections, like during 2 years now, we have seen very concrete examples of what happens when the traditional right and the far right join forces. Healthcare services have been cut so much that the access to treatment is more difficult than ever. Social security has been cut drastically. Poverty among families with children has increased. Education has been cut. Workers' rights have been curtailed in many ways. First, the right-wing government restricted workers' right to strike. Since then, they have, among many other things, used legislation to restrict the public sector's ability to raise wages. This is the right-wing stream. The rich will get richer, and those in a weaker position will be squeezed even further. Income and health disparities will grow. The right-wing Prime Minister's party, the National Coalition Party, has been known in previous decades as a party that values education and wants to uphold the most fundamental human rights. Within the party, such views are now gaining less and less support. The party's main theme has become austerity and continuous cuts. It seems that the party is prepared to forget everything human as long as it can cut people's services and the welfare state. What has enabled this is cooperate in government with the right-wing populist Finns party. The Finns party is a party that is about 30 years old, which is fairly new by Finnish standards. The Finns party originally gained support from the poor people in rural areas. The party has profiled itself as the defender of the common people against the elite. Opposition to the EU has also been important to them. Since then, the party has set its skin and become a genuine racist party. The most important issue for the Finnish party today is opposition to immigration and Islamophobia. In government, they have pushed through numerous restrictions on immigration. The general atmosphere in Finland has also become more polarized and less secure, as right-wing populist ministers are pushing minorities into a corner in public debate. The situation in Finland is therefore that the traditional right-wing party, the National Coalition Party, has sold out its principles and enabled the far right to push through their policies. In return, they get to make cuts and austerity. The right-wing populist Finns party, on the other hand, has never been a defender of ordinary people. The party not only accepts, but also, under the leadership of the Minister of Finance, pursues a policy of cuts that favors the rich. Their reward is numerous restrictions on immigration. One side effect of this is a shift in the Social Democrats. The party has moved to right, particularly on human rights issues. Most recently, they voted in favor of the pushback law. This will certainly sound familiar to the Danes, at least, I guess. But what can we do in this situation? It is important to create hope and build ways for people to participate. Civic activism must not remain a hobby for a small group of people. It is important to find issues that as many people as possible consider important. Let's organize nonviolent demonstrations and campaigns, work together to oppose government initiatives that violate human rights, campaign for women's rights, and invite everyone to join us. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite you all to Finland. In November, we are organizing a mobilization event in collaboration with ELA. There, we will hear inspiring examples from different European countries of successful campaigns and projects to break the position of the far right. In addition, we will plan concrete new means of mobilization and what kind of project we can implement next. Cooperation between left-wing progressive forces is important. I'm so happy and pleased that we, as European leftists, can exchange experience here. After all, leftism has always been transnational and international. An important question is how anti-fascist action can be relatable to large groups of people and how it can be made as easy as possible to participate in. The ILA Party Congress is an important arena for these discussions. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. And now I call Eva Flivholm from Red Green Alliance, Denmark. Eva, thank you.
Thanks. All right, dear comrades, something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Our parliament just decided to allow American military bases on Danish soil, to invite Donald Trump, who again and again has threatened Denmark and Greenland, to have his own private bases in our land. To be or not to be in your right mind, that is the question. How can our prime minister do this? How can she allow American mercenaries to walk around armed? How can she allow the CIA, who openly says it wants to spy on Denmark, on Danish citizens, allow them in? How can she allow American soldiers who commit abuses to not be prosecuted in Danish courts? This is a direct threat to our citizens. And therefore, we in the Red-Green Alliance, of course, always oppose this deal. But now, with Trump, the orange bully in office, it's just so obviously and completely insane. Of course, we voted no. But in the whole Danish parliament, we were only two parties, us and the Red-Green Alliance and a small Green party, who voted no. This is totally against the will of the people. In the population, there is a clear majority against these bases. I live in a small town called Sorø. It's about an hour outside Copenhagen. And one Saturday morning, we took my kids' box of chalk and went to the main street. And we asked people if they thought that Trump should be allowed to have military bases in Denmark. And then they could mark like yes or no in the street. In an hour, we had 62 no's and only 3 yes. I know this is just a small town, but I think it sums up pretty well how people feel in Denmark and in many other countries. A lot of people do not like fascist bullies. A lot of people can see when governments are wrong, and a lot of people want politics done differently. This is a new opportunity for us on the left. We are no longer just the weirdo in the street. People start to realize that we were actually right all along. They start to listen. And we don't have all the answers, but we have a lot of them. And our answers are so much better than those of the governments and the right wing. We don't need more private profit and private planes. We need better schools, cheaper trains, clean water. And comrades, we need more of us in power. These are truly frightening times. Fascist forces are on the rise. In Ukraine, we see the people fighting Putin's war machine. In Palestine, Netanyahu is carrying out a genocide. And in the US, Trump is more dangerous than even before. And all over Europe, fascist parties are rapidly growing. What they all have in common is that they have zero respect for international law and human rights. They are spreading their oppressive, anti-democratic bullshit, spreading their hatred. These are ideas that should have been rotting in the junkyard of history, and now they're again being paraded in the streets. We will not let them do this. We are here to fight fascism. We are here to secure the rights for the people, and we are here to deliver the change that the world so badly needs. To do this, we must be able to defend ourselves and build new alliances based on the respect for democracy and international law. In the Red-Green Alliance, we just had our Congress last weekend, and we had our dear comrades from Ukraine with us. From day one, we have supported sending weapons to Ukraine because we defend the people's right to self-determination, and we go against Putin's brutal invasion. We work closely with our comrades in Socialny Ruch on social justice, and we just had a delegation in Ukraine. Our support is strong and deep, and it will continue to be so. In our Congress, we also adopted a new security policy. It means that we will strengthen our defense, make ourselves independent of the US, and work closer with especially our Nordic neighbors. At the same time, we will work tirelessly for peace, dialogue, and mutual disarmament. When we say defense, we actually mean defense. Never, never again aggressive wars like in Iraq and Afghanistan. We will always, always lead the fight for peace. And maybe most importantly, remember that defense is much more than bullets and bombs. Our welfare, our communities, our social security, these are perhaps our most important protection against fascism. We have seen it again and again. When people feel socially and economically insecure, that's when the Putins, the Trumps, and the Melonis gain support. That's why it's so dangerous when neoliberal parties cut our welfare, when they make the working class poorer or finance the militarization by cut downs in hospitals and schools and so on. Yes, we need a defense that works, but we also need welfare that works. We need a just green transition. We need a green transition. The destruction of our planet, it doesn't just stop because political leaders stop talking about it. There is a need for socialist parties because we insist that the strongest weapons we have against Trump and Putin and their likes, that is our welfare, our solidarity, and our freedom. And that brings me to Gaza. We are now witnessing genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and the international community, the EU, our government, they do nothing. Denmark is even exporting weapons to Israeli bomber flights. This must not be allowed to continue. Israel must be sanctioned, isolated, and boycotted to stop the killings and ensure freedom for Palestine. There should be absolutely no debate over this. When we see children being bombed and starved to death, we need to act. You can't just annex other countries. That's what our Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, she said when she recently visited Greenland. And she has again and again condemned Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. But what? But that is exactly the same crime that Israel is doing, annexing another country. Where is the help for Gaza's people? Where's the condemnation of Israel? How can so-called civilized countries export weapons to genocide? The hypocrisy is so extreme. The global rule is on the brink of collapse, and we will not stay silent. We will not be complicit. We will continue to fight for the freedom of Palestine. Now is the time to show that there are rules in this world, and those rules apply to everyone, including Israel. And in these dangerous times, we are ready. We will defend the right to freedom for Ukraine, for Palestine, for Greenland, for everyone. We'll fight fascism and all sorts of bullies. We will make politics for people without private airplanes. Together, we stand, a strong fighting left, for the people, for the planet, for freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Our next speaker is Adrian Zandberg from Poland, co-chair of Razem. Welcome.
Hello, friends. Today we meet in sunny Portugal, but even here, the sky is obviously getting clouded. In the east, Putin's criminal regime wages cruel imperialist war against Ukraine. Netanyahu's extremist government is committing genocide against the Palestinian people as we speak. And across Europe, we see the far right rising. And the billionaire class, the tech moguls, the oligarchs, they tighten the grip over our societies. Now, the future they are building is obviously dystopian. It's dictatorships, it's wars, exploding inequalities, attacks on basic human rights, and democracies gradually turning into playgrounds for oligarchs. And these are not just isolated outbursts of hate, of greed, of cruelty. They are obviously interconnected. It is Putin who bankrolls the far right across Europe. It is Netanyahu who is politically allied with them. And the big tech companies obviously support them. They amplify them. They economically benefit from this chaos. Now, what we see, obviously, symptoms of the systemic crisis. And what we see is the liberal establishment that is helpless. For years, in Poland and in many other countries, they claim that they are the shield against the far right, but they are not. They hollowed our democracies, they impoverished the workers, they slashed the public services, and today they are the political fuel of the far right. Today the far right channels the rage against the old establishment, but only to legitimize policies that serve the new oligarchy. We talked here about the resistance, but the resistance itself is not enough. What we do need is power. We must confront those forces with the kind of power that is born out of anger and hope. These were the emotions that once drove the democratic left. We must reclaim the anger. We must reclaim that hope, because that's the only way to reclaim our future. Now, let me take you for a while to my country, to Poland, and tell you a modest story of hope. Now, 10 years ago, the left here was broken. It was crushed, and in the eyes of millions, it was just a part of establishment. The sole word, the left, was mocked, rendered meaningless by the grim legacy of the authoritarian regime. And it was the nationalist right that captured the anger of workers. It was the nationalist right that captured the anger of the young generation. Now, when we started Razem, we had no money, we had no established structures, we had no media outlets. We obviously swam against the current. But what we had was that anger and the hope that fueled us. Now, today, thousands show up at Razem's rallies. This year alone, 10,000 people signed up and joined the party. And what brought them together was anger and hope. Now, the young generation in Poland, but I believe that's the case of many, many countries in Europe, is fed up with the establishment. They are tired of well-dressed politicians who are handing contracts to their cronies. They want the alternative to the broken system. And the truth is, it is either us or the far right that will be that alternative. And this is our practical experience. Now, fighting the far right is not a question of aesthetics. And what we see on the streets is that people, I think Orbán was talking about that, they don't want to hear big words about fascism. They don't want to hear moralizing sermons. They've been lectured too long by liberals who later turned their life into misery. So they don't want to hear it anymore. What they ask are simple questions. What kind of future in practice do you offer? And is this future better for me than the one that the far right offers? And, well, that is our experience at least. When we hear these questions, these are valid questions. And we need simple answers for these questions, practical, down-to-earth answers. We need to point to the fact that it's that establishment that turn the life of the millions into a chip in the financial casino. And we have to promise that we can break that game, that we can build affordable housing. We have to point out that they want to close hospitals and that we will defend the hospitals, that we can make the country work for you, make the country a place where you will be able to afford education, to start a family, and the far right has not the answer. That's what we say when we talk to people on the streets. You do not want your country to work only for the rich. And the far right, they serve the rich. They do not serve you. The answer is not egoism. The answer is solidarity. Now, all across Europe, we now hear the liberal elites crying about the surge of the far right. But actually, they're missing the real problem. For millions and millions of workers, life is getting harder. The prices of basic goods keep climbing, and years of austerity have destroyed our hospitals, our schools, our communities. Now our nations face unprecedented housing crisis in Poland, and I believe all over the Europe. So when those patronizing elites praise the crumbling status quo, be it on the pages of New York Times, of Gazeta Wyborcza, of El País, of The Guardian, it is a completely futile exercise, because either we will transform our economies and rebuild our societies on the principle of solidarity, or the far right will prevail, and that's the real stake of the struggle. And that is why I believe we have to be bold. We need to change Europe to stop the budget cuts that deepen inequality. We need to say farewell to the so-called fiscal responsibility that became just a lazy excuse to protect the interests of the wealthy and powerful. We do not need austerity. Europe needs massive public investment. Europe needs investment in affordable housing, in quality healthcare, in science, and in green infrastructure, and new well-paying jobs, because this is our weapon to stop the far right. This is our weapon to protect our democracy. And for that task, we do need better coordination of our movements, because that is our common task. But the good part of the story is that historically, solidarity, cooperation were always the weapons of the democratic left. And this is crucially important, because the solidarity is the only way forward to defend our democracies. Because we can make our economies work again for millions, not just for billionaires. We can stop aggressive regimes. We can defend international law. We can ensure that human rights are respected. We can make Putin, Netanyahu, and other war criminals face the International Criminal Court. And I truly believe we can do so. We can reclaim the future for the people and for the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And now we invite Manuel Bompard, coordinateur national de la France Insoumise. Bienvenue.
Hello everybody, I will speak in French, it's easier for me. Je veux évidemment d'abord remercier
First, I'd like to thank the organizers of this event and to thank namely our comrades from Bloco, the Esquerda, that made it possible for us to meet here today in Porto. Thank you to all militants of Bloco that mobilized to host us today, and we are extremely happy. And we measure the symbol, the symbolic fact that this first meeting of our alliance is being held here in Porto, here in Portugal. Of course, after the general election where the far right achieved unique results, but also in a country where 50 years ago started the movement of the fall of dictatorships of Southern Europe. And we will not forget that we are here today in this room because we will have the same feeling that the other speakers, that history, political projects and words that we thought could be rejected or had been rejected forever, now are coming back to power in a moment of peril. They are coming back, even in countries that experienced decades of fascist dictatorship, and where today the fascist movements are gaining important results. And also, France, we have witnessing for several weeks, months even, the comeback of practices, actions that we thought we would never see again. We have watched marches in Paris, people crying, Paris is Nazi. And you've seen, like me, it's a world event, a man doing the Nazi salute live on TV, and no one in the French media, I thought it was the same happening at their media in your country, saying that this was a Nazi salute. And not something that he pretended to be different. So before this, all this, and when history is trembling, we have this conviction. The conviction is that the left cannot prevent, they cannot allow, or can only prevent the right from taking power if we have a strong program, if we stand up, if we stand by our programs, if we face the anti-racist struggle, if we assume the anti-fascist struggle, and every time a left-wing party falls to neoliberalism, every time they refuse the radical transformation of society, every time a left party allies with the right forces to keep a liberal domination, every time they do that, they are opening the roads and preparing the road for the far right to come to power. And that is why, if we are happy today to be part of this new European party, if we are happy to create together these new European parties, because we think that we have this in common. Each one of us in our respective countries, with our current specific national situations, we all have this in common. And what we have in common is that if the left wants to be an alternative, if the left wants to prevent the far right from taking over the power, we have to assume a project, a program, a strategy which is clear of disruption, a strategy of a left that says no to the kingdom of the market, and that always favors the basic needs of the people over the capitalist interests. A left that says no to a capitalist system that will take us against the wall in the environmental viewpoint, and that on the other hand we want an economic model based on the satisfaction of the basic needs. in harmony with all human beings and the ecosystem of the planet that makes our human life possible. A left that assumes clearly and faces the anti-racist fight, that we are not ashamed of saying no when a person is targeted because of his religion or origin or skin color. A left that refuses to organize debate on the themes that the far right wants to impose on the political agenda. On the contrary, a left that assumes its own proposals, that does not excuse itself from defending disruption, but it's proud of it. And because we are proud of it, it creates conditions for popular mobilization, conditions for a movement of citizens, a movement of associations, of trade unions, and it represents them politically and institutionally. So here I want to greet what the comrade from Germany said, from the Linke, because what happened in Germany in the last elections shows that when the left is organized on lines of disruption, when it faces the fight against fascism, it gains ground, it mobilizes the youth, it mobilizes the popular neighborhoods. And when the left does not do this, then it is just opening the door for the far right to come to power. If you have Kamala Harris facing Donald Trump, you have Donald Trump winning. If the left does not mobilize the youth, it does not mobilize those that want to transform society, then you have the far right on power. And if fascism seems today to be gaining ground, it is because we are in an historic moment, a moment of change, when the neoliberal model that has dominated politically and economically our democracies for decades is now at stake. And what we are experiencing and what happened in previous years or previous decades, that's because there has always been fascist resurgence, and there has always been racism. The far right never disappeared completely. But what makes a difference from today, from these ancient times, is that today this discourse, these parties, these strategies are no longer being rejected by the dominant economic model. They are becoming part of it. They are becoming a choice. Otherwise, no one can understand how Milei, the Argentine president, was hosted in Davos by all powers of the world, because today capitalism is in an impasse, in a standstill, and is looking for an alternative to keep its control. And this alternative, they find it on fascism, and namely the libertarian fascism. But in South America, reborn in North America, brought to the United States by Donald Trump, that now tries to impose it on Europe as well. So, precisely because we do this analysis, we know that fascism is not the opponent of neoliberalism. Fascism is the continuity of neoliberalism in times of crisis. And that is the reason why you cannot beat fascism unless you are clearly in the opposition with against these neoliberal positions that are in power today. And this international context is also the one of empires that are becoming stronger. It is international law that is being brought down. It is the arms race, the race to war that these imperialist powers try to impose on us. The purpose, with the only purpose to satisfy the economic interests of cannon fodder and cannon markets. The left that can prevent this crazy race, it's the left that says yes to peace, yes to international right, yes to non to war, non to genocide in Gaza. And I also must say that we are very pleased and proud because I think it is symbolically strong that the first campaign that will involve our common movement, our common European Party, is a campaign for to end the economic association agreement between the EU and Israel, because the genocide in Gaza shows everything that we talked about this afternoon. So from our experience, from the experience that we have watched in the world, the coming of the far right to power is not a fatality. It's not an obligation. The far right is not something we cannot do nothing about. You know, 2 years ago, in the French presidential elections, in the beginning of the campaign, the polls said that the left would have about 8% of the votes in that election, and the far right would have 30% in the election. But then, the day of on the polls day, we had 22% of the votes, and Rassemblement National, the far right, had 23% in this presidential election. And last year in France, after the Assemblée Nationale, the parliament was dissolved, and the far right had very important results in the European elections, and the media kept saying that it was just a matter of weeks for the far right to be in government in France. 27 polls in the 20s that were organized, they all said that the far right would win, and the future government of France would be led by a far-right prime minister. Well, the night of the elections, the coalition that we have created, the Nouveau Front Populaire, as was again ahead. And if we won this legislative election, it was because in this battle, in this campaign, the youth, the popular neighborhoods, the barrier, those that for years stayed at home, didn't vote because they couldn't find in the political field an alternative that could represent their concerns, could defend the new conquests, the new objectives for development in our country, that the youth and the popular barriers got together, and against all polls, they prevented the far right from taking over. And I'm sure you have experiences like these in your countries, and they make me think that in these moments of change, we are at times where there is a danger, yes, but the opportunities are also important. And if we work together, if we share our know-how, our experiences, if we help each other, if we work together towards the expansion of this alternative, we will beat the far right, and we will transform our societies towards more social justice, more environment, more peace, and we will achieve this together. Dear comrades, thank you for being here. Thank you for your work. Long live our European Party. Long live the Alliance of the European Left. Long live the anti-fascist struggle. Thank you, Manuel Bompard. The next speaker, she comes from Spain, Irene Montero. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. You have the floor.
¿Quieres que me lo ponga? No me hace falta, ¿no? No, no, que me mato. ¿Sí? ¿Es mejor ponerla?
Sí, bien. Catarina está de fin.
Bueno, boa tarde, compañeras, compañeros.
Good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon to you all, men, women, and the others. I'd like first to thank the comrades from Bloco from having hosted us here today and organizing this first Congress of the European Left Alliance. Thank Amalia and Katarina for having accepted to lead this new alliance, ecologists and feminists and anti-fascists, and also those ones that made this possible. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Look,
Margaret Mead,
Margaret Mead, a feminist anthropologist, once answered the question, what was, according to her, the first sign of civilization of mankind? And they were expecting her to say something like fire or the wheel, but she answered that the first signal of civilization of human being was a broken and healed femur bone. So people, what makes us human is that we are born dependent, and the other ones make us free. So that's why I defend public health, public education, pension systems, dependence systems, and that is why the President Petro said correctly, if Palestine dies, humanity dies, because we cannot accept, after almost 2 years of genocide, broadcasted live, every day, bombing hospitals, schools, refugee camps, a terrorist state like Israel that is leaving people without food, without what to drink, without humanitarian aid, without health, without medication. Children in Palestine cannot survive. This is not acceptable. And even tonight, the terrorist state of Israel attacked Iran. They are assassinating, they are murdering people that travel miles and miles to find food, and so they are exterminating the Palestinian people. In the meantime, just a few days ago, they arrested international watch, the flotilla that wanted to break the blockade that the terrorist state is subjecting the humanitarian aid. And for 2 days, they arrested our companion, Rima Hassan, that fortunately is now in France, ready to keep fighting for the rights of the Palestinian people. And today, even today, now, this terrorist state, with the help of the Egyptian dictatorship, is trying to prevent a demonstration in Gaza that wants to be the voice of the people of the world, of humanity, defending the dignity and the free Palestine from the river to the ocean. And I'd like to say something very clearly. We are with Palestine, but that's not enough. If Israel can do all this, it is because they have no limits. If they have no limits, it's because no one that could impose these limits is imposing them. As Europeans, we have the obligation to denounce the complicity, criminal complicity of the European elites with the genocide. Europe is, from the beginning, has been selling more weapons than ever to Israel. Spain, my country, has military and trade relationships with Israel that are more fruitful than ever, more profitable than ever. 40 contracts for the purchase of weapons for 1 billion euros. We are with Palestine. We demand an embargo of the weapons now, breaking the trade and diplomatic relationships, and that they are not remaining in pain, but von der Leyen, Kaya Kallas, and all the other European accomplices that with their silence or with trade relationships and democratic relationships are supporting this genocide. Look, I think that a lot of those that spoke before already said it. The world doesn't work. Now, it's undergoing a serious crisis. We must find, we must be aware of this critical moment. 15 years ago, the people of Europe were imposed an important coalition of austerity, lots of suffering to the people of Europe. Now, 15 years later, these same elites are imposing on us a coalition of war, of complicity with genocide. And this coalition of war, of cuts and complicity with genocide, will end the most precious good of the people in Europe, the rights of so much effort. We have our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers and grandmothers have gained, because the armament will be paid with the money. And Mark Rutte, the General Secretary of NATO, already said, with the money of our pensions and health systems. Rearmament, comrades, is high street robbery. And with this rearmament, and through NATO, the European elites are giving away our sovereignty to Donald Trump. They are putting democracy at risk. But whoever wins in European elections, if this plan of war goes forward, it will be the major US corporations that will rule on Donald Trump. They say that the United States is our ally, but the European elites are making him being the owner of Europe. And nobody in Europe has power or is brave enough to face a fascist like Donald Trump and tell him that Europe is sovereign. And we want the money that is now appearing under the sun to buy weapons. We want that for hospitals, for schools, for public policies, for decent pensions for our senior citizens. That's what we want. And I believe we should bear in mind something we said 15 years ago, that we are watching again. European elites are more fearful of the people than of fascism, and that is why they can they try to exterminate people that wants to pay an illegitimate debt to pay public service, but they gave free ride vulture funds and preventing people from having houses to live in. The European elites are afraid that the people can command much more than fascism, so they want to put the far right of Meloni and Orbán and the European Commission with the shameful votes in favor of the European social democracy, but they want that France, Insoumise government in France, already have the whole elections there, because they have more fear of the people than of fascism. So, Manuel Bompard, he's right when he says that to be an anti-fascist is to be against the neoliberal, cruel and unfair regime that dooms us to lives without rights. Lastly, I want to say that fascism is the way that the elites have to defend their privileges. It's the consequence of a neoliberal system that gives them all the power to the elites and not to the people. But fascism is also a child of what cannot be done. So this idea that we have to negotiate with the right and to come to an agreement between right and left to stop the far right, that there is no alternative, that is all what we have, there is no alternative. So let us think about another possible war, because there is nothing better. This idea to tell us that the feminists went too far, that we should not be so demanding in our claims because we are bothering the fascists and making them win elections. This idea that when fascism is strong, we have to go for the lesser evil. This idea of the lesser evil opens the door to the far right, because with this pact, the right is always ruling. The pacts within social democracy and the right were not able to promote rights. They've been always used to give the power to the worst rights in Europe. And if the progressive sectors act as the guardians of a system like the neoliberal system that doesn't work, then this is we are just laying the red carpet to fascism. That's why we did this alliance that took some time to create, but because with this platform, we want to prevent the fascists from having more rights, and someone has to be an alternative in Europe and tell the people that we have are entitled to dream of a better world, and we cannot stop fascists with lesser evils. We cannot stop the fascists with pacts with the right. We cannot stop them with the neoliberal system or being quiet. because the masses are going with their violence, are progressing. The larger corporations are taking over our rights and making businesses with our rights. We didn't go too far. To us, this fight for decent lives is just starting. That is why I believe we cannot forget that Trump, von der Leyen, Milei, Netanyahu want to impose the law of the strong and of the stronger. And they want to convert, they don't have fear of anything, but there is something they are afraid of. It's the people organized, the people that struggles. And that is why Trump is now cracking down on the demonstrations in LA. And now they are prescribing Cristina Fernandez and fighting the feminists and fighting the solidarity with Palestine, because the people want to say basta, enough. And that is why, dear comrades, we have to say that, yes, there is an alternative. We have created this alliance today, this European alliance of feminists and anti-racist left, for the people, for the planet. And we are aware that we follow the best democratic tradition. The one of Maria Pacheco of Spanish that is buried here because he has to come to exile in Portugal because she did the revolution in 1521. And 5 centuries later, Spain did not get her body back because she was a fighter of democracy, of liberty. And they told us what they wanted the earth to be and to become to the people. We have inheritors of the great democratic tradition, the workers' fights in the Commune of Paris and the International Leagues of Women for Peace, the Anti-Fascist Resistance, the partisans, the Marquis Resistance, the international fighters, Rosa Luxemburg, that on the Spartacus League, after saying no to the war credits, the revolution of the incarnations in Portugal and the revolutions against austerity. Comrades, we are very proud to be as we are feminists, to champion for the people, to be anti-racist, to be ecologist, but most of all, to make it possible what the elites say it is not possible. And as Angela Davis said, today we created this alliance because we cannot accept that we cannot change things. Yes, we will change everything we cannot accept. Yes, we can.
Muchas gracias, Irene.
Thank you, Irene.
Dear comrades, we are about to come to the closing of this first session of our first Congress, where we had the opportunity to listen to the leaders of the member parties of the European Left Alliance and also some of the international allies. Before we do so, previously I had the pleasure to call my former boss, and now I'll call my current boss, Mariana Mortágua, the strongest woman in the national parliament. In the national parliament.
Her former boss, vou te envergonhar. Muito boa tarde. Se me permitem, falarei também em português.
Good afternoon. If you allow me, I will speak in Portuguese. I would like to begin by thanking the representatives of all parties, social movements, allies who are here with us today, who will be with us in Porto today and tomorrow, and would like to use this opportunity to say thank you to Catarina and Marlene for all the work they did in order to create this new alliance, this new party in such a short time, a party and alliance that is a movement of hope for all of us. On the 10th of June, 10th of June is Portugal's day. It happened a few days ago. 10th of June, which is the day of Portugal, where we celebrate the death of possibly the most well-known Portuguese poet, Luís de Camões. The 10th of June is celebrated every year as the Day of Portugal. And this is a day that for a long time has a significance, a meaning that is being disputed. For some, it means an open identity, a porous identity, where language is a symbol of that same identity, an identity that is permanently changing, being updated with new forms, with new meanings, with new sounds, with different pronunciations. For others, the Day of Portugal, the 10th of June, is an opportunity to throw a very decadent view on Portugal, of a closed identity, an invented identity, like are all the closed, pure identities, all the supremacist identities are invented. 30 years ago, on the 10th of June of 1995, that decadent perspective on identity and nationality of those who tried to affirm a pure identity, that perspective fell on the roads of Lisbon, and a black man was beaten to death by a group of neo-Nazis. He was called Alcino Monteiro. A few days ago, on the 10th of June of 2025, a group of neo-Nazis, which included the assassin of Alcino Monteiro, invaded a theater in Lisbon and beat up one of the actors. The actors was one of this, the show they were playing, or the play they were showing, was on a poet, on Luís Camões. And he was an author who used to say that I love my country, but I love it with the good things and the bad things, the things that I must condemn, the things that I must pray. On that same day, the imam of Portugal's central mosque was insulted during an official ceremony. And here in Porto, women volunteers who were supporting the homeless were attacked by a group of neo-Nazis. These are attacks that have been taking place in recent months. These are attacks against cultural events, launch of books, and there are citizens who no longer feel safe to walk around the roads of Portugal. And believe it or not, in Portugal, we didn't hear the Prime Minister condemn these attacks. The Prime Minister hasn't so far condemned all these attacks by neo-Nazis. As regards the atmosphere, Luís Montenegro, the Prime Minister of Portugal, said that he made a very general reference. He said, well, the threat of extremisms in the plural, the various extremisms in recent times. And there are two things that I would like to say to the Portuguese Prime Minister using this opportunity where we are here together. The first is that we should call things what they are. We are not talking here about extremisms. We are talking about far-right extremism. It is called neo-fascism. It has a name. We aren't talking about vague extremisms. The Prime Minister of Portugal knows very well who these groups are. He knows the threat they represent. He knows the names of these groups. And he knows all this because he read on these groups and on the threat they represent a report on internal security, where the information about these far-right groups was censored and redacted. precisely the part of the report that referred the threat that these far-right groups represent was redacted, eliminated from the final version of the report. And so far, we don't know as yet why the authorities decided to remove from the report the threat, the reference to the threat represented by the extreme right. The second thing I would like to say to the Prime Minister of Portugal is that if neo-fascists take the streets and insult and attack others, is because they feel they can do so. They feel legitimated by lies, by a discourse that has turned equality into gender ideology, that have accepted to make immigration the center of political debate and to discuss it under the terms that the far right uses, and that have used racism and immigration to mask, to hide the inability of various governments in this country, have shown to respond, to address the difficulties that people face. People who are tired because they do not know if they are able to pay their rent or buy a house, when they see prices going up, when the salaries remain the same, who are tired because they cannot dream about a different future. And many of the countries where these crises occurs were governed by parties that call themselves labor parties, socialist parties, while they destroyed social welfare, the social state, where they destroyed the ability of workers to organize themselves and demand better working conditions. These were parties that call themselves labor parties and socialist parties, but destroyed what gave quality to our democracies. Comrades, many of us met during the 2008 financial crisis, and we ask ourselves, how could neoliberalism survive the 2008 financial crisis? How would neoliberalism survive to such a structural crisis, a crisis of its legitimacy, a crisis of its values, a crisis of the values that neoliberalism presented as its own values? How would neoliberalism be able to survive? What form it would take? How would neoliberalism try to take revenge on the social and left movements that emerged during the 2008 financial crisis? And today we know what form neoliberalism took. Now we know how neoliberalism is taking revenge on the left and on social movements. The revenge began when they crushed Greece, a country where people tried to raise and liberate themselves. The transformation of neoliberalism began during the financial crisis. Neo-fascism is not a sudden disease. It is not something that struck us unexpectedly. We didn't get up one day and found that the country was full of neo-fascism. Neo-fascism is something that takes place to grow its roots, and neo-fascism is a movement that tries to move meanings and changing the limits between what is acceptable and unacceptable, between us and them. There is no fascism without a long and committed process of dehumanization. That is what happened when the people of Greece were dehumanized, the people of Southern Europe who suffered the policies of austerity. It was that happened then, and that happens today with racism. Racism and attacks against immigrants is instrumental to the growth of fascism, because it is racism that allows us to dehumanize the other. And it is also for that war exists. Wars allow economic systems to restructure themselves and to dehumanize people. The war of Israel against the Palestinian people, against its existence, is instrumental to the growth of fascism in the world. All democracies that witness what is taking place, the extermination of the Palestinian people, are closer to authoritarianism and to fascism in Europe. Whether in Europe or in other parts of the world, those democracies that remain silent are closer to authoritarianism and to fascism. And in the same vein, all the countries that protect the bellicism, the warmongery of Israeli authorities in Gaza, in Palestine, in the Middle East, are turning international law into dead letter. This is an irresponsible fact and something that is turning the world into a much more dangerous place. And the question, comrades, is that we have to ask ourselves is, what should we do when we feel fascism arriving? And the answer is that we will not remain quiet. We will not abandon the principles of the left. We will not accept racism, unacceptable migratory policies. We will defend the principles that make democracy. And it is precisely when it is more difficult to raise and to defend equality, to defend Palestine, it is precisely when it is more difficult to raise and defend the rights of women and migrants, it is precisely then that the left can be useful. We will not witness disaster taking place before ours. We organize ourselves, we prepare the change. We have to look for what unites us, and we will use the best of each of us, of each country, in each country, so that we can turn all the parties more militant, more active, and more able to address the future that is coming. The party that we are creating today with Podemos, with France Insoumise, with the parties of Sweden, Finland, Bildu, and others, this European party is the flag of the left that is being hoisted in very dark times. This is the party of hope. This is an alliance that will mark the future of Europe against the current tide. This is the flotilla of freedom. Thank you, Mariana. I ask you to remain here on the rostrum.
I think me and Marisa were up to the task, but please give us your opinion. If you think so, maybe you can consider to recommend us both to the Eurovision Music Contest so we can continue with this career. Thank you for the invitation to moderate your speeches. You were all great. We want to invite you once again to come on stage to take a family picture, the family picture of the foundation of ELA. So all the party leaders, all our international guests, please join us here to take a picture. At 7, the organization also asked us to give 2 infos. At 7 p.m., we will all meet guests and delegates in the front to go to the restaurant. And at 9 p.m., there will be a protest in solidarity with Palestine in front of Porto City Hall. We also hope to meet you all there. So,
Siamo tutti antifascisti!